I feel fine. And I'm not taking paternity leave until I absolutely have to. I am never there for Buck.
Our growth rate parallels that of yours until after adolescence.
I wasn't even there when he was born.
Back in 1989, TV audiences tuned in expecting another run-of-the-mill cop show and got hit with a bald-spotted alien who drank curdled milk, had two hearts, and casually dropped social commentary between homicide investigations. Alien Nation wasn't just weird, it was wildly ahead of its time. A gritty buddy cop drama mashed up with deep themes of racism, immigration, and identity, all dressed up in prosthetics and uncomfortable-looking suits. One detective was human. The other was a newly arrived alien immigrant just trying to raise a family and not get shot in the process. Fox canceled it after one season, but the cult following never stopped. And today, we're diving into 11 weird facts about Alien Nation that'll have you wondering how this show ever made it to air and why it still matters. Stick around, because fact number 1 is basically Lethal Weapon in space. 1. The pitch was literally Lethal Weapon in space. When Alien Nation was first pitched to Fox, it was described as Lethal Weapon, but with aliens, and that's exactly how they marketed it. A standard buddy cop drama, just with latex headpieces and bizarre bar orders. But creator Kenneth Johnson wasn't on board with that version. He didn't want to make Miami Vice with prosthetics. Johnson pushed to turn Alien Nation into something deeper, a story about prejudice, identity, and what happens when your neighbors have spotted heads and names you can't pronounce. Instead of mindless explosions, the show became a thoughtful look at discrimination, assimilation, and fear of the unknown. It used its science fiction setting to explore real-world issues, all while including uncomfortable alien birth scenes that made audiences squirm. Fox expected a light cop show with action. Johnson delivered sharp social commentary, and that unexpected shift became one of the show's defining traits. 2. George Francisco got a full personality transplant. If you watch the original Alien Nation movie, you met George Francisco as played by Mandy Patinkin, and he was intense, haunted, brooding. The kind of alien who looked like he'd seen some serious intergalactic trauma and maybe cried about it in private. But when the TV series launched, Patinkin was out, and Eric Pierpoint was in. And suddenly, George had a completely different vibe. Gone was the tortured ex-slave. In his place, a soft-spoken, thoughtful, endlessly patient alien dad who just wanted to explain human weirdness to his kids and stop his partner from being a jerk. Pierpoint didn't just replace Patinkin, he redefined the character. His George wasn't weighed down by cosmic sorrow, he was grounded, warm, and somehow made the whole premise feel believable. The spotted potato head alien became kind of lovable. That shift gave the show its heart. While Sykes was grumbling about aliens and society, George was the steady voice of calm, the conscience of the story. Honestly, without Pierpoint's version of George, the show probably wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes.
Our growth rate parallels that of yours until after adolescence. And then at about age 20, it slows to about half that of humans. Albert, he's 56.
3rd, Alien Nation's subtle alien. Look took hours to create for a late 80s TV show. Alien Nation looked surprisingly good, and that was no accident. The distinctive look of the newcomers came from Stan Winston Studios, the same team behind The Terminator and Aliens. They designed custom bald caps with spotted patterns, ridged temples, and prosthetic ears that gave the aliens a just human enough look. It wasn't meant to be flashy or over the top. The idea was to make the aliens look different, but still familiar, like someone you might do a double take at in the grocery store. But that subtle design came with a price. Actors went through 4 hours of makeup every single day. It involved custom-fitted pieces, detailed scalp painting, and seamless blending to make sure nothing looked fake, even on grainy tube TVs. The look was intentionally low-key, but the effort behind it was massive. And if you didn't feel tempted to call your bald uncle Potato Head after watching the show, you probably weren't paying attention. The series ended on a massive cliffhanger. In 1990, Alien Nation wrapped its first season with a shocking twist. The finale introduced a deadly purist virus, a biological weapon designed specifically to wipe out the newcomers. It was a full-blown genocide plot, and the stakes had never been higher. Detective Sykes and George were racing against time to stop the release of the virus, but just as things hit a critical point, the episode ended. Roll credits. What fans didn't know was that this wasn't meant to be the final episode. The writers had planned to continue the story in season 2, leaving viewers with a classic to-be-continued moment. But instead of getting answers, fans got silence, and the show was canceled. It was the TV equivalent of ending The Empire Strikes Back right after Darth Vader's big reveal and never making Return of the Jedi. Audiences were left hanging, and for years, no one knew what happened next.
We have all the equipment we need. It'll take about 2 weeks to produce enough bacteria to spray LA County.
5. Alien Nation lived on through comics, novels, and apes. Even though Alien Nation was canceled after just 1 season, it didn't disappear. Between 1990 and 1992, Malibu Comics picked up the story and released a series of Alien Nation comics and novels that kept the world and its characters alive. But they didn't just stick to standard alien cop adventures. Things got weird. One of the strangest spin-offs was called Ape Nation, a crossover between Alien Nation and Planet of the Apes. In it, newcomers and humans teamed up with militant apes to fight a common enemy. It was pure 90s comic book chaos, the kind of storyline that feels like someone pulled it out of a hat. Still, it worked well enough to build a cult following and keep fans engaged. While the show was off the air, the comics gave fans a way to explore the universe even further, whether it was through alien family life or bizarre ape alliances. 6. 5 made-for-TV movies gave fans long-awaited closure. After the series was abruptly canceled, fans didn't just move on quietly. They wrote letters, made noise, and eventually someone at Fox realized there was still life left in the franchise, just not as a weekly series. Between 1994 and 1997, Fox produced 5 made-for-TV movies that picked up right where the show's cliffhanger left off. The first film continued the purest virus storyline and gave fans the answers they'd been waiting 4 years to get. The movies brought back the original cast and kept the same tone, mixing crime drama, family life, and social commentary, all in that strange, latex-covered world. While it wasn't a full revival, it was enough to give the story proper closure. These films showed what happened to George, Sykes, and their families, while also exploring new threats and tensions between humans and newcomers. For fans who had waited years, it was proof that sometimes networks do listen, even if it takes a while. 7. Kenneth Johnson was doing prestige sci-fi before it was cool. Long before shows like Battlestar Galactica or The Expanse turned science fiction into award-winning social commentary, Kenneth Johnson was already doing it with Alien Nation. Johnson, who also created V and worked on The $6 Million Man, wasn't interested in flashy effects or simple alien stories. He used the newcomers as a metaphor, exploring racism, immigration, class struggles, gender roles, and cultural bias through a sci-fi lens. What made Alien Nation different was that it didn't just use aliens for spectacle. It used them to reflect human society. Newcomers dealt with slurs, workplace discrimination, segregated schools, and even hate crimes. One episode had a male character go through pregnancy, a move that was both strange and surprisingly heartfelt. At a time when most sci-fi shows were chasing explosions, Johnson was chasing meaning. Alien Nation didn't just entertain, it asked questions about what kind of society we are and what kind we want to be. It was thoughtful, layered television, dressed up in spotted bald caps and weird ear prosthetics.
George, you're in phase 2. You better call in and tell them you can't come into work.
I feel fine. And I'm not taking paternity leave until I absolutely have to.
8. Fox didn't cancel Alien Nation. Because of bad ratings, the cancellation of Alien Nation wasn't because the show failed. In fact, it had a solid fan base, respectable ratings, and plenty of story left to tell. The real reason? Fox was broke. During the 1999-91 season, Fox ran into major budget problems and made the decision to cancel every hour-long drama on its schedule, including Alien Nation. It didn't matter that the show was performing well, it just cost too much to keep around. Between the makeup, the effects, and the ambition behind the storytelling, it wasn't a cheap production. And when the network had to choose between expensive shows and survival, Alien Nation got the axe. It's a familiar story with Fox, taking risks on bold, creative shows and then cutting them loose too soon. Alien Nation joined a long list of fan favorites that were gone before their time, right alongside Firefly and Arrested Development. The TV show went deeper than the movie ever did. The Alien Nation movie, released in 1988, had a cool premise: alien immigrants trying to fit into human society while solving crimes. But it didn't dig very far beyond the surface. It was fast-paced, action-heavy, and focused more on shootouts than social depth. The TV show, on the other hand, had 22 episodes to slow down and explore. And that made all the difference. The series took time to develop the newcomer culture, everything from their religion and family structure to their dietary habits, birth rituals, and even their approach to marriage and education. The show famously introduced male pregnancy as a normal part of their biology, a concept that was strange, funny, and surprisingly moving. By expanding the world and showing how two very different species shared neighborhoods, jobs, and schools, the show moved beyond the typical sci-fi setup. It wasn't just aliens and cops. It was about how cultures blend, clash, and adapt. The movie was a solid introduction, but the show became a full experience. Thoughtful, emotional, and far richer than anyone expected from a network drama with spotted aliens. 10th multiple reboot attempts crashed and burned. With its cult following and timely themes, Alien Nation seemed like the perfect candidate for a reboot, and several studios tried, but none of them ever made it past the planning stages. In 2009, the Sci-Fi Channel announced a reboot with Firefly alum Tim Minear attached as showrunner. Fans were excited, and for a moment, it looked like Alien Nation might return with a modern, serialized format. But the project quietly disappeared without a single frame being shot. Then, in 2015, another reboot attempt surfaced, this time promising a darker, grittier version of the original. But like the one before it, it faded into development limbo and was never heard from again. By 2021, it was clear that Alien Nation had joined the long list of cult shows stuck in reboot purgatory. Whether it was the cost of makeup, creative differences, or just the weirdness of the original concept, no one could seem to get it off the ground. Despite the interest, Alien Nation proved tough to revive. Maybe because it was too strange or too smart for modern TV execs to figure out.
Buck got into another fight at school. Susan is there, but once again, I am not. I am never there for Buck. I wasn't even there when he was born.
11. The alien language was just English spoken backwards. If you ever watched Alien Nation and thought the alien language sounded strangely familiar, you weren't wrong. The newcomer language, called Tengtonese, wasn't some complex built-from-scratch alien dialect. It was just English, played in reverse. Creator Kenneth Johnson and his daughter came up with the idea as a shortcut. They took English phrases, reversed them, added a few harsh consonant sounds for flavor, and that was it. The actors learned it phonetically, and to the audience it sounded convincingly alien, even though it was literally just backwards talking. It was a clever, low-budget solution that worked surprisingly well. Unlike shows that hire linguists to invent entire languages, Alien Nation kept it simple, and most viewers never noticed. So the next time you hear a newcomer speak in their native tongue, remember, under all the cultural depth and alien wisdom, they're basically just rewinding English and calling it a day. Alien Nation may have only lasted one season, but it left behind a legacy that was stranger, smarter, and far more meaningful than anyone expected. What started as a buddy cop show with aliens became a bold exploration of identity, prejudice, and what it really means to coexist. From backwards languages to ape crossovers, it's the kind of show that made you laugh one minute and think hard the next. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of sci-fi TV's most underrated gems, do us a favor. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more forgotten TV flashbacks, and drop a comment telling us your favorite Alien Nation moment or another weird show you'd like us to cover next. Thanks for watching. And remember, just because a show's been forgotten doesn't mean it's not worth remembering.